Hindi. Hindi pwedeng ki. Paksyat naman, anong kalokohan tong umaga-umaga? Napatili ako, pero yung pigil lang, baka magising si Lola Yaya sa kabilang kwarto. El phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Not just buzzing, it was having a seizure, practically vibrating off a small bedside table made of old fruit crates. Pagtingin ko, my God, three notifications were exploding. Friend requests from people I didn't know, gasset flooding in, and mentions. So many mentions. Sino tong girl ni Papa Remus? #mystery girl #Remus Montenegro spotted si. Grabe, ang simple ni ate girl pero mukhang type ni Fafa Rems. #kilig alert #new shifty. From kusina to EA. Cinderella story yarn. Spill the tea, girl. At Lilial Cantarad. And my eyes widened. Is the blurry, deer caught in headlights photo, sitting beside the Remus Montenegro, plastered all over what looked like popular gossip page. Paano? Kailan? At bakit parang ang init ng pisngi ko just remembering last night? My heart hammered against my ribs like drum solo sa fiesta. Last night. Oh God, last night. It all started with ginger tea. Salabat, to be exact. Lily, Apo, Lola Yaya called from the service kitchen of the Montenegro mansion, her voice a little tired but still warm. Pakidala naman ito kay Senora Consuelo. Nasa may veranda daw siya, yung malapit sa may pool. Alam mo na, yung paborito niyang pwesto. I carefully took the steaming mug. Opo, la. Ito na po. Lola Yaya has been with the Montenegro since before I was born, practically a fixture in their household. At dahil summer break at wala akong magawa sa bahay, kundi mag-scroll sa phone at maghanap ng part-time, I offered to help her out, lalo na ngayong may malaking party si Senorito Remus. Para may extra ka rin, Apo, Lola said, pating cheek. The Montenegro mansion was something else. Parang palasyo. Tonight, it was even more much. Lights were twinkling everywhere, music was thumping from giant speakers, and people who looked like they stepped out of magazine covers were milling about, laughing too loudly and holding champagne flutes like it was the most natural thing in the world. I was wearing the best, and only, decent-looking floral dress that probably cost less than one of the canaps, the old but reliable flat sandals, and nervous smile. If the mission was simple, deliver salabat, then disappear back into the relative anonymity of the kitchen. Madali lang, di ba? Sana. The main party area was a sprawling garden that led to a massive, glittering pool. Ang daming tao. Parang fiesta na may halong alta sociedad. I tried to navigate through the crowd, murmuring excuse me po, and daan lang po, 1,000 times, careful not to spill the precious salabat. Tagalog was probably too formal for this crowd, where English phrases dripped like honey from their lips. Excuse me, saan po banda yung veranda na malapit sa pool? I asked the passing waiter who looked as stressed as he felt. He pointed vaguely towards a direction. Doon po, ma'am, sa may area. Kanan lang kayo tapos diretsuhin nyo, yung may mga puting sofa. Area. Oh. Okay. That sounded exclusive. I clutched the mug tighter. The aroma of ginger, usually comforting, now felt like a beacon announcing, "Hey everyone, look at the girl who doesn't belong." Pagdating ko sa area na tinuro niya, my jaw practically dropped. It was less crowded, sure, but the people here mas matindi pa. The women were in slinky dresses that glittered under the soft lighting, their jewelry sparkling. The men were in crisp shirts, looking effortlessly cool and probably smelling like million pesos. Everyone seemed to know each other, laughing and chatting with an easy confidence I could only dream of. And then, there I was. Lily Alcantara. Simple, ordinary Lily, holding a mug of ginger tea, feeling like a lost sisiu in den of eagles. Nasaan ba kasi yung Senora Consuelo? Lumingalinga ako, trying to spot an elderly lady who might be Remus' grandmother. Wala. Baka nalipat ng pwesto. I took tentative step further in, Levi sandals silent on the plush outdoor carpet. I scanned the clusters of people, and that's when I saw him. Remus Montenegro. Even from the distance, even with just a glimpse, you'd know he was someone important. Maybe it was the way he leaned back on the pristine white sofa, one arm casually draped over the backrest. Maybe it was the way people gravitated towards him, laughing a little louder when he spoke. Or maybe it was just his face, chiseled jaw, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips, eyes that seemed to see everything with an amused glint. He was devastatingly handsome, the kind you only see in movies or billboards. The kind na kahit anong anggulo, pang-cover ng magazine. Anak ng tokwa, ang gwapong ah. He was holding a glass of what looked like expensive whiskey, listening to a glamorous-looking woman with fiery red hair who was animatedly talking to him. He nodded, took a sip, and then his eyes met mine. Napahinto ako. Bigla. As in, full stop. My brain short-circuited. He raised an eyebrow, that smirk widening a fraction. Pakiramdam ko, namula ako from ethos to the roots of ethly hair. Gusto kong mag-evaporate on the spot. What do I do? Do I pretend didn't see him? Do I give the small, awkward wave? Do I just turn around and run? Before I could decide, disaster struck. A waiter, rushing past with a tray full of glasses, bumped the elbow. Not hard, but enough. Ay, kabayo! I yelped, the mug of salabat tilting precariously. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the golden liquid slosh, about to make a grand, messy entrance onto the pristine white sofa, or worse, onto Guapo Playboy himself. And my life flashed before the eyes, Lola Yaya's disappointment, getting fired, even though I wasn't technically employed, becoming the clumsy girl who ruined the essay section. But then, a hand shot out. A strong, firm hand that caught my wrist, steadying me. The same hand expertly guided the mug back to an upright position, not a single drop spilled. Who there, careful? I looked up, straight into Remus Montenegro's amused eyes, now just inches away. He was taller up close. And even more handsome. My God, this was not happening. In my heart was doing the cha-cha, the tango, and the tinikling all at once. Salamat po, I stammered, feeling like a complete idiot. LDV voice sounded squeaky. Sorry po. May hinahanap lang po ako. He let go of his wrist, but his eyes stayed on me, curious glint in them. The red-haired woman beside him was now looking at me with a mixture of annoyance and disdain. I suddenly felt very, very small. Looking for someone, or just lost, miss, he trailed off, that smirk firmly in place. He sounded like he was enjoying this. Definitely enjoying this. Lily po. Lily Alcantara. Bakit ko sinabi yung buong pangalan ko? Hinahanap ko po si Senora Consuelo. May dala po akong sa para sa kanya. I held up the mug of salabat like it was a sacred offering. Remus chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that, annoyingly, sent a shiver down my spine. Lola. She's probably inside, charming some ambassador. She gets cold easily out here. He gestured vaguely towards the main house. Then, his gaze fell on the mug again. Salabat, huh? Haven't had that in ages. The red-haired woman scoffed softly. Remus, darling, we were talking about the new resort in Palawan. Remus waved a dismissive hand at her, not taking his eyes off me. Later, Cassandra. This is more interesting. He looked back at me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. So, Lily Alcantara, the salabat beer. You look a little overwhelmed. Understatement of the year. Medyo po, I admitted, my cheeks burning. Hindi po ako sanay sa ganito kagranding party. Clearly. He took another sip of his whiskey. Then, to my utter shock, he patted the empty space beside him on the plush sofa. Well, since you're already here, and you look like you're about to faint, don't you sit down for a bit. Catch your breath. The salabat can wait. Lola's probably too busy networking to miss it for another 5 minutes. And my eyes widened. Me. Sit there. Beside him. Sa sofa, with all these glamorous people staring. Parang mas lalo akong hihimatayin. Nako, wag na po, sir. Okay lang po ako. Nakakahiya po, I stammered, already backing away slowly. Hahanapin ko na lang po si Senora sa loob. Sir. So formal. He grinned, a flash of white teeth. It's Remus. And don't be dry. It's just a seat. He then did the unthinkable. He reached out, not grabbing, but gently, almost playfully, tugging at the edge of my dress sleeve. Come on, one drink. Or, well, you have your salabat. I'll have gin whiskey. We can toast to accidental encounters in sections. My brain was screaming no. This yath vize. Rigid, Lily, Regan. But Gina feet, holes that they were, seemed rooted to the spot. And his eyes, there was something in his eyes, a playful challenge, a spark of genuine curiosity that was hard to resist. Maybe he was just bored. Maybe he found the awkwardness amusing. Or maybe, just maybe, he was a little bit human under all that sea gloss. Before I could process anything further, or before Dimba's brain could send the abort mission signal to Dimba's legs, he gave a slightly stronger, yet still surprisingly gentle, tug. I stumbled a bit, off balance, and somehow, I ended up plopping down onto the sofa beside him. Beside Remus. Montenegro. The world seemed to tilt. The red-haired Cassandra shot me a look that could curdle milk. I could feel other eyes on us, curious, speculative. My face was on fire. I wanted the earth to open up and swallow me whole. See? Not so bad, right? Remus said, his voice low, meant only for me. He leaned back, looking utterly unconcerned, as if pulling random, salabat-carrying girls to sit beside him was a normal Tuesday night. I just stared at Dima's lap, clutching the mug of now lukewarm salabat like a lifeline. Yumt was all I could manage. Eloquent, I know. Then he surprised me again. He leaned in a bit closer, his shoulder brushing mine, and whispered, relax. You look like just sentenced you to death row instead of offering you a seat. He then picked up a small, untouched plate of fancy-looking nuts from the low table in front of us. Want some? They're surprisingly good. Though probably not as good as your Lola's salabat. I couldn't help it. A small, nervous laugh escaped me. Hindi ko po alam. Baka po mas masarap to. He chuckled. We'll have to have a taste test someday. And just like that, the tension eased a teeny bit. Maybe it was his easygoing charm, or maybe it was just too stunned to be properly terrified anymore. We started talking. Well, he did most of the talking, asking me like questions. What was studying? Culinary arts. Ironically, what thought of the party? Overwhelming, but the lights were pretty. If I've ever tried 15-course degustation menu. A resounding no. The idea of a fancy meal was Jollibee with extra gravy. He didn't make fun of me. He listened, genuinely listened, his eyes often crinkling with amusement, but never with malice. He teased, yes, in that playful way of his, but it didn't feel demeaning. It felt like. For the few minutes, I almost forgot was nobody get a crashing the essay section with a mug of ginger tea. I even found myself laughing at one of his self-deprecating jokes about his own disastrous attempt at cooking instant noodles once. It was during one of these moments, when I was laughing at something silly he said, Jim's head tilted back slightly, and he was smiling, genuine, unguarded smile, that bright light suddenly flashed nearby. Smile for the live stream, Dim Montenegro, T voice called out. My eye snapped towards the source. A young woman, holding up a phone with a ring light attached, was grinning at us. She was clearly one of those social media influencer types, broadcasting live from the party. And her camera was pointed directly at us. At me and Remus, laughing together, looking cozy. Oh! Right. God! The smile on Remus' face didn't falter, but I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, annoyance. Resignation. He just gave a charming nod to the camera. Always pleasure, Tina. But I froze. Totally, utterly froze. My laughter died in his throat. The warmth I'd started to feel turned into a cold dread. Nakunan kami. Together. Laughing. Parang kami. Before I could even process the full implication of that, an authoritative, yet amused, voice cut through the murmurs of the essay section. Remus, Hijo. Who is this lovely young lady you're keeping all to yourself? All heads turned. Yes, and a head snapped up. Standing a few feet away, leaning on an elegant cane but with eyes as sharp as a hawk's, was an elderly woman with silver hair coiffed perfectly, exuding an aura of old money elegance and quiet power. This had to be Senora Consuelo Montenegro, Remus' grandmother. The matriarch. Remus stood up respectfully. Lola. I was just about to bring her to you. This is Lily. She, brought you some salabat. He gestured towards me, and I scrambled to my feet, nearly tripping over my own sandals, still clutching the now cold mug. Senora Consuelo's eyes, shrewd and discerning, scanned me from head to toe. It wasn't a judgmental look, more like an assessment. A very thorough assessment. I felt like a butterfly pinned under a microscope. My floral dress suddenly felt ridiculously cheap, yet by flats absurdly plain. Then, she did something unexpected. A slow smile spread across her lips. A genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. She looked from me to Remus, then back to me. She then declared, in a voice loud enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear, including the still live streaming influencer. Apo, I've been waiting for you to bring home someone real. Hindi yung mga parang manikin na dinadala mo dito. She winked at me. Then, looking at Remus with knowing glint in her eye, she said the words that would echo in nightmares and in countless social media posts for days to come. She's the one, Remus. Mark my words. This girl. She's the one. The influencer's jaw dropped. Cassandra, the red-haired woman, choked on her champagne. The surrounding guests gasped, then started whispering furiously. Remus looked stunned for a split second, then a complicated expression crossed his face, part amusement, part exasperation, part something else it couldn't quite decipher. Me. I just stood there, salabat mug still in hand, feeling the blood drain from in the face. My mind was a blank, white noise. Gulat. Understatement. Kilig. Wala na, natabunan na ng matinding hiya at panic. The girl from the kitchen, the one who got lost, was now, apparently, the one for the billionaire C, declared his own grandmother, live-streamed for the whole world to see. Paksht. Triple paksht with a side of extra-large fries. The phone, which had been on silent in his small sling bag, probably started its manic vibrating then. And I had no idea the full extent of the chaos that single pronouncement, coupled with that accidental viral video snippet, was about to unleash on Nivi, very ordinary, very quiet life. Ang babaeng galing kusina, biglang nasa headline. At hindi ko alam kung matatawa ako o iiyak. The morning after the party felt like different dimension. Yung klase ng dimension na gusto mong takasan pero naka-superglue ka sa sahig. Yung phone, after its seizure last night, had finally died. But the news? Oh, the news was very much alive and kicking Tivi's sanity to the curb. Lola Yaya was unusually quiet while preparing breakfast. Usually, she'd be humming an old condiment or telling me stories about her youth in the province. Pero ngayon, her brow was furrowed, and she kept glancing at me with a mixture of worry and something else I couldn't quite name. Excitement, maybe. Oh, please, no. Lola, yung kagabi po I started, voice barely a whisper. She sighed, placing plate of sinangag and tuyo in front of me. Nakita ko na, apo. Ang daming reporter na tumatawag sa telepono ng mansyon kaninang madaling araw pa lang. She shook her head. Nako, si Senorito Remus talaga. At si Senora Consuelo, biruin mo iyon? Easily appetite vanished. Reporters. Plural. Oh, God. This was a nightmare. Lola, misunderstanding lang po lahat yun. Naligaw lang po talaga ako. Hindi ko naman po. Hi, Lily. She sat across me, her eyes soft. Alam mo, minsan ang tadhana mapagbiro. Pero minsan din seryoso. Tadhana? Lola, please. This wasn't tadhana. This was a massive, publicly broadcasted, socially awkward foobar. Just then, Yuvai almost ancient Nokia phone, the one used for actual calls and texts because no smartphone's battery life was joke, started ringing. Unknown number. Yin my heart leap into my throat. Hello po. Is this Ibes Lily Alcantara? A crisp, professional female voice asked. Parang yung mga sekretary sa pelikula. Oo po, ako nga po. This is Beatrice, executive assistant to A. Remus Montenegro. Ying a Montenegro requests your presence at the Montenegro Corp. Headquarters today at Isa Cero Das. A car will be sent to pick you up at your grandmother's staff house address in 30 minutes. Request? Sounded more like a summons. Parang ipapatawag ka sa principal's office. Yun, para saan po? In a Montenegro will explain everything. Please be ready. Thank you. Click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. Lola Yaya was looking at me, her expression unreadable. Mukhang kailangan mo nang magbihis, apo. The drive to Montenegro Corp. Headquarters was a blur. The car was sleek, black, and smelled of new leather, a stark contrast to the jeepneys and tricycles. Was used to the building itself was a towering monument of glass and steel, symbol of power and wealth that made in a small, rented apartment feel like shoebox. Which, to be fair, it kind of was. Pagpasok ko sa office ni Remus, CEO's office, no less, pakiramdam ko, anytime, pwede akong matunaw sa carpet. It was huge, minimalist, with panoramic view of the city that probably cost more than the entire college tuition. And then there was her. Hindi si Remus ang unang sumalubong sa akin. Kundi isang babae na may tindig gray na, buhok na perfectly coiffed, at suot na power suit na sigaw I eat peasants like you for breakfast. She was flipping through a broadsheet newspaper, her expression stormy. Yung tipong may paparating na bagyo, signal number 5. This must be his mother. Senora Victoria Montenegro. The resemblance to Remus was there, but where Remus had a playful glint in his eyes, hers held only eyes. So, you are Lily Alcantara. Her voice was low, dangerous. She tossed the newspaper onto the massive mahogany desk. The headline, in bold letters, screamed, Montenegro hears mystery Cinderella. Bass TV, Lola Consuelo promised. Below it, a slightly grainy but unmistakably clear photo of me and Remus, laughing, on that blasted vase sofa. His bi-floral dress looked even more out of place beside his tailored suit. With cheeks burned. Senora. Good morning po. Ang hina ng boses ko, parang kinain ng vacuum cleaner. Good morning. She raised two perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Do you find anything good about this the circus your little escapade has caused, Miss Alcantara? Escapade? Parang ako pa yung may kasalanan. Hindi po pasensya na po. It was all a misunderstanding. Naligaw lang po talaga ako sa party kagabi. Hindi ko po sinasadya. Misunderstanding. Her laugh was sharp, humorless. Miss Alcantara, the Montenegro name is not built on misunderstandings. It's built on decades of hard work, impeccable reputation, and careful planning. Something you and Evaison, with his impulses seemed to have forgotten. Biglang bumukas yung pinto sa gilid and Remus walked in. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. He was still wearing a crisp shirt, but the top button was undone, his tie loosened. He looked like he'd wrestled a bear and lost. "Mom, please." His voice was wary. He glanced at me, the quick, unreadable look. "Lily, thank you for coming." "Remus, are you seriously going to cuddle this girl after she single-handedly jeopardized the Nakahara deal?" Senora Victoria's voice rose to pitch. "The investors are spooked. They want stability. They want to see mature, settled Remus Montenegro, not some playboy caught gallivanting with a nobody." "She's not a nobody, Mom," Remus said, a muscle tightening in his jaw. "And Lola likes her." "Oh, your Lola," Senora Victoria scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Consuelo has always been romantic. But this is business, Remus. Billions are at stake. We need to do damage control. And fast." I just stood there, feeling like tennis ball being whacked back and forth. Gusto ko nang umuwi. Gusto kong magtago sa ilalim ng kumot at wag nang lumabas ever. Takot. Yun yung nararamdaman ko. Pure, unadulterated takot. This was way out of my league. Senora Victoria fixed her steely gaze on me. Evaison was supposed to announce his engagement to Cassandra de Villa next month. A strategic alliance. Good for business, good for the family image. Cassandra. The red-haired woman from last night. So, she was the fiancé to be. Suddenly, her death glare made perfect sense. "But now," Senora Victoria continued, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "thanks to your little Cinderella moment, and Consuelo's enthusiastic endorsement, the narrative has shifted. Cassandra is furious, naturally. The de Villas are insulted." She paused, then dropped the bomb. "So, we have new plan." Remus sighed, running key hand through his hair. "Mom, we talked about this. And we agreed, Remus. This is the only way." She looked at me, her eyes narrowed. "Miss Alcantara, you will marry Evaison." Natigilan ako. Parang nabingi. "Marry? As in, kasal? Sa kanya? Sa Playboy C na to na mukhang mas gugustuhin pang magpa-root canal kaysa makasama ako ng matagal?" "Po." Eyes quick. Pero bakit po?" "Hindi naman po kami, wala naman pong kami." "Precisely," Senora Victoria said, a grim smile on her face. "But the public, thanks to that viral video and my mother-in-law's pronouncement, thinks there is something. And right now, we need to project an image of stability. A whirlwind romance, a surprising but ultimately heartwarming love story. The public eats that up. The investors will be placated." "This is insane," I whispered, shaking his head. "Hindi po ako pwede. Hindi ko po kaya." I looked at Remus, hoping for some support, some sign that he thought this was as crazy as did. He met the gaze, his own conflicted. "Lily, it's complicated. It's a solution, Remus," his mother snapped. "A temporary one, perhaps. But necessary one." She turned back to me. "Of course, there will be compensations. For your trouble. And for your family." In my heart sank. Compensations. In Ray family. Lola Yaya's words about Tadhana suddenly felt like a cruel joke. If Ray family wasn't rich. Eve's parents worked hard, but there were always bills to pay, tuition fees for my younger siblings, their own culinary school dreams that felt increasingly distant. Lola Yaya's small earnings helped, but this was a different league of help. I felt a wave of nausea. They were buying me. Buying this agreement to this sham. "Ayoko po," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "Pasensya na po, Senora, Sir Remus. Pero hindi ko po kayang gawin yan. This is not right." I wanted to run to scream. This was too much. Senora Victoria's eyes hardened. Miss Alcantara, do you have any idea the kind of scandal this will cause if you back out now? After my mother-in-law practically announced your engagement to the world. You'll be branded a liar, a gold digger who got cold feet. My son's reputation will be in tatters. Our company see. Mom, that's enough, Remus cut in, his voice sharp. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a hint of something other than exasperation or coldness. Was it apology? Regret? Lily, I know this is a lot to ask. Believe me, this isn't how I envision things either. He gestured to a thick document on his desk. It's contract. Lila mother, she's just trying to protect the family, the business. But this decision, it has to be yours too. My mind was racing. Is my family's happy, hopeful faces when they heard that news? Lola Yaya's knowing smile. The weight of their unspoken expectations. The lure of financial security, not just for me, but for them. And then, the image of Senora Victoria's wrath, the threat of scandal. I felt trapped. Utterly, hopelessly trapped. This wasn't just about me anymore, was it? I looked at the contract. It probably detailed how I was supposed to act, what was supposed to say, how long this charade would last. It was a script for a life didn't want. A heavy silence filled the room. Only the distant hum of city traffic could be heard. Slowly, reluctantly, I walked towards the desk. My hand was shaking as I picked up the pen. It felt as heavy as a bar of gold. Or lead. If I do this, I started, the voice hoarse. Yue family, they will be taken care of. Senora Victoria's expression softened, just a fraction. Of course, child. Consider it a token of our gratitude. Gratitude. Right. I looked at Remus. He was watching me, his face unreadable. Was he relieved? Disappointed? Annoyed that he was stuck with me? With deep breath that did nothing to calm the storm inside me, I signed the name. Lily Alcantara. Soon to be Lily Alcantara Montenegro, give a contract. The ink felt cold on the paper. Parang dugo. As soon as put the pen down, Remus let out the breath he seemed to have been holding. Senora Victoria, on the other hand, looked almost triumphant. Excellent. She clapped her hands together, all business again. Now, we have a lot of work to do. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow. We need to brief you, Lily. There's a backstory to memorize, public appearances to schedule. You'll be moving into Remus' penthouse immediately. Penthouse? Agad-agad? My head was spinning. Tampuhan. Yun na iyon. Resignation mixed with a quiet, simmering resentment. I felt like a pawn in their very expensive chess game. The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings, wardrobe fittings, goodbye, floral dress, hello, designer labels I couldn't even pronounce, and couple coaching. Apparently, we needed to learn how to look like we were madly in love. The rehearsal for our first major public appearance, a meet and greet with key investors, was particularly excruciating. We were in a large boardroom, with Remus' ZT head, stern woman named Ms. Daza, scrutinizing our every move. A Montenegro, a little more warmth, please. You look like you're about to sign a merger, not gaze lovingly at your fiancé, Ms. Daza instructed, tapping her pen. Laugh. Alcantara, dear, tears sighed to look at him. Like you actually like him. A little smile, perhaps. Not like he just told you your favorite dog died. Madali lang sabihin. Ang hirap gawin, lalo na kung yung key fiancé mo ay parang robot na pinrogram lang para ngumiti on cue. Remus tried. He really did. He'd put an arm around Timba's shoulder, but it felt stiff, awkward. He'd smile at me, but it wouldn't quite reach his eyes. I'd tear-sighed to smile back, but probably looked like he was suffering from extreme constipation. Okay, let's tear aside the how we met story again, Gnes Daza said with a sigh. Remember, it was love at first sight at charity gala you both attended. You, Glat Alcantara, were a volunteer and he was instantly smitten by your sincerity and simple charm. Simple charm. Right. More like clumsy girl with ginger tea. We stumbled through the fabricated story, our lines sounding rehearsed and unnatural. There was a moment, though, when Remus was describing our supposed first date, a quiet dinner. You walked beside the bay, all lies, of course, and he looked at me. For a split second, our eyes met, and there was a flicker of something human. Shared misery, perhaps. Then it was gone, replaced by the polite, distant mask he wore. Nakakabaliw. This whole thing was utterly, completely insane. Later that evening, after another grueling day of pretending, we were finally alone in his ridiculously opulent penthouse. I was staring out at the glittering city lights, feeling more lost and alone than ever. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Remus walked over, stood beside me, also looking out the window. He was holding 2 glasses of water. He offered one to me. Thanks, I mumbled, taking it. Look, Lily, he started, his voice quieter now, without the say's bravado. I know this is messed up. For both of us. I just nodded, unable to speak. In my throat felt tight. Tampo. Disappointment. A longing for end my old, simple, uncomplicated life. He sighed. My mom can be intense. She's just trying to protect what my grandfather built. And Lola Consuelo, well, she means well, but sometimes her romantic notions cause complications. Complications, I repeated hollowly. That's one word for it, see. Selling Givi life, Givi future, for financial security and to save a billionaire's reputation. Yeh, complicated. He turned to face me, his expression serious. I need you to know. This is strictly a business arrangement. A performance. We do what we have to do, get through this, and then we go our separate ways. No strings attached. I met his gaze, a flicker of defiance finally sparking within me. Don't worry, Lim Montenegro. I'm not under any illusions. He looked at me for a long moment, then a gyrally, almost sad smile touched his lips. Good. He paused, then added, almost as an afterthought, his voice dropping even lower, just tearsy not to fall for me, okay, Lily. It'll only make things messier than they already are. I scoffed internally. Ang yabang talaga. As if that was even a remote possibility. Me fall for him. The arrogant, emotionally constipated Sei, who was basically using me as a pretty band-aid for his company's image. Yeah, right. The feeling is mutual, Dim Montenegro, I said, with voice colder than intended. I have no plans of falling for you either. He just nodded, then turned back to the window. Good. That makes 2 of us. But as I stood there, sipping the water, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears, teeny, traitorous voice in my head whispered, famous last words, Lily. Famous last words. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach. But now, it was mixed with something else, heavy, weary resignation, and deep, simmering tampuhan. This was in my life now. A beautifully decorated cage. And I had just willingly walked into it. Living with Remus Montenegro was like living with a very handsome, occasionally brooding, and surprisingly messy roommate. Yung penthouse niya, kasing laki ng basketball court, pero parang laging may invisible na kalat. Not an actual, dirty kind of mess, but more like a lived-in chaos. His chaos. Suits slung over chairs, stacks of business papers on the coffee table that looked like they were about to stage cop, an empty coffee mug here, stray sock peeking from under the sofa there. Ako naman, well, let's just say Lola Yaya raised me to be organized. Maayos. Yung tipong alam ko kung nasaan ang bawat paperclip sa drawer ko. So, yes, there were adjustments. The first week felt like walking on eggshells. We had separate bedrooms, thank God, on opposite ends of the sprawling penthouse. Parang East Wing at West Wing ng White House, pero ang aawayan namin kung sino ang nakalimot magbaba ng toilet seat. Small things, but they were constant reminders of how different our worlds were. One morning, I was on the way to the kitchen, still half asleep, wearing the favorite oversized pambahay shirt na may faded print ng SpongeBob, Don't Judge, and cotton shorts. Pagdaan ko sa ensuite bathroom ng master bedroom, which, for some reason, Remus sometimes left slightly ajar, caught a glimpse of him. He was standing in front of the massive mirror, shirtless, a towel slung low on his hips, shaving. Water droplets glistened on his broad shoulders, his dark hair was damp and tousled. The morning light streaming through the window caught the defined muscles of his back and arms. For a split second, I just stared. Okay, maybe for a few seconds. Anak ng pating, the man was built. Like, really built. He wasn't bulky, just lean and powerful. Like T-Pander, or something equally dangerous and alluring. He must have sensed me, because he paused, razor mid-air, and met my eyes in the mirror. My God. Nahuli niya ako. I swear, di ba'y face turned 50 shades of red, gusto kong mag-teleport papuntang Pluto. Instead of looking annoyed or making a sarcastic comment, which I fully expected, a slow, sleepy grin spread across his face. Yung klase ng ngiti na hindi pang CEO, hindi pang press conference. It was just Remus. Walking up. Looking sinfully gorgeous. Good morning, Lilipad, he said, his voice still raw with sleep. Lilipad. That was his new nickname for me. I wasn't sure if I liked it or found it incredibly cheesy. Maybe both. Good morning, I stammered, averting the gaze, suddenly very interested in the Persian rug beneath my feet. Sorry. Dadaan lang sana ako papuntang kitchen. No worries. He went back to shaving, seemingly unfazed. Coffee's probably brewed. Manang Rosa came in early. Manang Rosa was his housekeeper, a kind, middle-aged woman who thankfully didn't treat me like an alien species. As practically sprinted to the kitchen, Jin by heart doing a weird tap dance. Elvis did that feel so intimate. It was just a guy shaving. But it wasn't just any guy. It was Remus. And for a moment there, with his sleepy grin and unguarded look, he seemed normal. Almost. Pero yung mga tinormal moments na iyon, minsan lang. Most of the time, we were too busy navigating the demands of our fake engagement. Attending events, smiling for cameras, repeating our well-rehearsed love story. It was exhausting. Nakakapagod magpanggap. Then, one evening, things took an unexpected turn. Remus came home late from a board meeting, looking pale and haggard. He usually had this invincible CEO aura, but tonight, he just looked drained. He barely acknowledged me, just grunted hello and headed straight for his room. A few hours later, around midnight, I was reading in the living room, unable to sleep. I heard a strange sound coming from his wing of the penthouse. A muffled groan. My first instinct was to ignore it, baka nananaginip lang. Or maybe he brought someone home, though, to his credit, he hadn't done that since I moved in. But then heard it again, louder this time. It sounded like he was in pain. Hesitantly, I got up and crept towards his bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. Remus? I called softly. Okay ka lang? Silence. Then, another groan. If our protective instincts, the ones usually reserved for my younger siblings or stray kittens, kicked in. Slowly, pushed the door open a little wider. The room was dark, save for the dim glow of the city lights filtering through the massive windows. Remus was curled up in bed, shivering, despite the thick duvet. I could see beads of sweat on his forehead. Remus? I tiptoed closer. I reached out and touched his forehead. My God, ang init niya. He was burning up. Lily, he mumbled, his eyes fluttering open. He looked disoriented. What's happening? Ang taas ng lagnat mo, I said, his voice laced with worry. Kailangan mo ng gamot. May first aid kit ka ba dito? He just shook his head weakly, a shiver racking his body. Don't know. Office may be tea. Okay, this was bad. The ever-prepared Siggy felt Gire if ever. I went into full caregiver mode. I remembered Lola Yaya's remedies. First, I needed to bring his temperature down. I rushed to his bathroom, found a face towel, soaked it in cool water, and gently placed it on his forehead. He sighed, a small sound of relief. Then, I rummaged through his kitchen, which was surprisingly well stocked with gourmet instant noodles and expensive coffee beans, but not much else in terms of actual food. Looking for Ginger. Wala. Okay, plan A, I muttered to myself. I remembered seeing a small, all-night convenience store near the building. Dito ka lang, ha? Bababa lang ako saglit, bibili ng gamot at atluya, I told Remus, who was now drifting in and out of consciousness. He just nodded weakly. I threw on a jacket over Denvy's SpongeBob shirt, grabbed Denvy's wallet, and hurried out. The streets were quiet at this hour, the city lights painting a lonely landscape. The cool night air felt good on Isvai's flushed cheeks. Ang weird, ako yung nag-aalala for him. For the guy who, just a few days ago, warned me not to fall for him. Pagbalik ko, dala ang paracetamol, Ginger, and a small container of instant lugaw, because, let's be honest, Divi culinary skills didn't extend to making lugaw from scratch at Isadi in a stranger's kitchen. Remus was still tossing and turning. I managed to get him to swallow the paracetamol with some water. Then, I busied myself in the kitchen, rating the ginger, boiling water, trying to concoct decent salabat. The familiar aroma filled the sterile, modern kitchen, making it feel a little more homey. When the salabat was ready, I carefully carried the steaming mug back to his room. He was a bit more lucid now, the medicine probably starting to kick in. Here, I said softly, helping him sit up. Inumin mo to, mainit pa. He took a tentative sip, his eyes closed. Listen, tastes familiar. He opened his eyes, looking at me with a strange expression. Like your Lola's. A small smile touched in my lips. Learned from the best sea. He drank the entire mug slowly, a little bit of color returning to his cheeks. I plumped his pillows, made sure he was comfortable. The initial panic had subsided, replaced by a quiet concern. He looked so vulnerable, so different from the powerful he usually saw. Just a man, sick and needing care. I pulled up a chair beside his bed, intending to stay until was sure his fever had gone down. The city lights outside cast long shadows in the room. It was quiet, save for his soft breathing. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, I woke up with a stiff neck, my head lolling uncomfortably. Sunlight was streaming through the windows. I blinked, disoriented. Then realized where I was. Still in Remus's room, slumped in the chair. And Remus. Remus was awake. He was propped up against the pillows, watching me. His fever seemed to have broken, he wasn't sweating anymore, and his eyes were clear. Good morning, he said, his voice still a bit raspy, but much stronger. There was an unreadable expression on his face. Oh. Good morning. I straightened up, feeling self-conscious. My hair was probably a mess, and I was still in his SpongeBob shirt. Kamusta na yung pakiramdam mo? Better. A lot better. He paused. Thank you, Lily. For taking care of me. Wala iyon, I said, shrugging a bit, though and my heart did a little flutter. Kahit sino naman siguro gagawin yun. Not everyone, he said quietly, his gaze intense. Cassandra probably would have just called her personal doctor and then gone shopping. I didn't know what to say to that. So, I just smiled faintly. The atmosphere felt different. The invisible wall between us seemed a little thinner. The in-business arrangement felt less businesslike, at least for that moment. Later that week, another small moment happened. One of those everyday, mundane things that somehow felt significant. I was in the middle of updating the very sad-looking sea. If my culinary school dreams felt so far away, buried under the weight of our fake engagement. I was staring blankly at the laptop screen, feeling a wave of frustration and hopelessness wash over me. Remus walked into the study, where I'd set up temporary workspace. He was on his phone, probably closing a multi-million peso deal, looking every bit the powerful. He finished his call, then noticed me frowning at my laptop. Problem, he asked, loosening his tie. I sighed, trying to make Novisi look less pathetic. Parang ang hirap maghanap ng work experience na relevant sa gusto kong gawin. He pulled up a chair beside me, much to Jinvai's surprise. Let me see. Hesitantly, I turned the laptop towards him. He scanned it, his brow furrowed in concentration. I expected him to make a dismissive comment, or tell me to just hire someone to do it. Instead, he started asking questions. What kind of culinary career are you aiming for? Pastry? Savory? Restaurant management? Actually, pangarap ko talagang magtayo ng maliit na karinderya or a small bakery. Something homey. Affordable but delicious. Parang yung mga luto ni Lola. He listened intently, nodding. Then, he started giving me suggestions. Practical, surprisingly insightful suggestions. Highlight your internship at that local bake shop more. Quantify your achievements. Instead of assisted in baking, say contributed to 15% increase in pastry sales yields developing 3 new recipes. Use stronger action verbs. He even helped me rephrase some sections, making them sound more professional, more impactful. He was patient, focused, and for that hour, he wasn't Remus Montenegro, the billionaire. He was just Remus, the guy who knew a thing or two about making a good impression. When we were done, he looked 100 times better. More importantly, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Thank you, I said, genuinely grateful. Ang galing mo pala dito. He shrugged, a hint of a smile on his face. Part of the job description. Selling things. Even people. He winked, but there was no malice in it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of worry, but because of a strange, unfamiliar feeling bubbling in the chest. A warmth. A lightness. Kilig. Oh God, was this kilig? For him? The guy who was practically in the fake fiant deal's contract. Just don't fall for me, okay? His words echoed in his mind. Too late. Maybe. Maybe not. But something was definitely shifting. The next morning, I was brushing the teeth in his own bathroom when he walked past the open door, also on his way to his bathroom, toothbrush in hand. Our eyes met in the reflection of a mirror. He had a dab of toothpaste foam on his chin. I had one on his nose. We both froze for a second. Then, simultaneously, we burst out laughing. Not typically chuckle, but genuine, unrestrained laugh. It was silly, absurd, and somehow perfect. The laughter died down, leaving a comfortable silence. He was still smiling, that unguarded, almost boyish smile that was becoming increasingly familiar, and increasingly dangerous to resolve. You have, he gestured to his nose. You too, I said, pointing to his chin. We both wiped the foam off, still grinning. He leaned against my door frame, looking at me with an expression couldn't quite decipher. It was soft, almost tender. You know, Lily, he said, his voice low. This whole thing. It's still crazy. But he paused, as if searching for the right words. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. Having you around. In my heart skipped a beat. Or maybe two. Then, he said the words that sent those carefully constructed defenses tumbling down. Pagod na ako sa fake, Lily. His gaze was direct, unwavering. Sa lahat ng pagkukunwari. Sa party. Sa press con. Sa meetings. He took a step closer. Maybe with us, kahit konti lang gusto kong totoo. Totoo. Real. My breath hitched. The air crackled with unspoken emotions. The toothbrush in my hand felt heavy. The toothpaste suddenly tasted too sweet. The reflection in the mirror showed two people, standing too close, with expressions too vulnerable. This wasn't in the contract. This feeling, this connection. It wasn't part of the deal. But as I looked into his eyes that were no longer distant or mocking, but were now filled with a surprising sincerity, terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if I wanted it to be real too? Gusto kong totoo. Those words. Ang mga salitang iyon ni Remus, they echoed in my head for days. Parang sirang plaka. Totoo. Real. It was a dangerous word, seductive whisper that promised something more than our carefully constructed charade. At ako naman si tanga, I let myself hope. I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this fake thing could actually turn into something real. The past few weeks, after his favor and our shared editing session, had been different. The awkwardness was still there, lurking in the corners, but it was slowly being replaced by a comfortable camaraderie. We'd find ourselves talking late into the night, not about business or strategies, but about silly things, his disastrous attempts at learning the guitar, the weird obsession with oddly shaped vegetables, our favorite childhood snacks. He even tried the adobo once, which cooked in his state-of-the-art kitchen, feeling like culinary trespasser, and declared it almost as good as Lola Yaya's. High praise coming from him. The killing factor. Oh, it was definitely there. Subtle but present. A lingering touch when he handed me a coffee mug. A shared smile across crowded room. The way his eyes would sometimes soften when he looked at me, as if seeing past the contract fines and noticing just Lily. The walls were crumbling, brick giga stupid brick. I was starting to like him. Genuinely like him. Hindi lang yung SEC persona, but the Remus underneath, the one who could be surprisingly thoughtful, unexpectedly funny, and yes, devastatingly charming when he wasn't trying so hard. The company, Montenegro Corp, was launching a massive new ecotourism project in Siargao. It was Remus' brainchild, something he was genuinely passionate about. The launch event was a glitzy affair, gala dinner held at a 5-star hotel, attended give investors, media, and the who's who of Manila society. Of course, as his loving fiancé, I had to be there, playing the part. I was wearing a sapphire blue gown that Mas Daza, his zihi head, had picked out. It was beautiful, elegant, and probably cost more than his entire life savings. Manang Rosa had helped me with every hair and makeup. For once, didn't feel like an imposter. I felt almost confident. Almost beautiful. Remus, in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, looked like he'd stepped straight out of a James Bond movie. When he saw me, his eyes widened slightly, and a slow smile spread across his handsome face. Wow, Lilipad. You clean up good. You don't look so bad yourself, see, I retorted, a playful smile on his lips. He offered his arm. Shall we? As we walked into the grand ballroom, all eyes were on us. The camera flashes were blinding. But this time, it didn't feel as terrifying. With Remus by side, his hand resting lightly on the small of his back, felt a strange sense of calm. Maybe this could work. Maybe this tutu thing he talked about was actually happening. The program started. Speeches were made. Toasts were offered. Remus was in his element, charming the investors, confidently presenting his vision for the Sargo project. I watched him, proud smile on his face, real smile, not rehearsed one. This was the Remus it was starting to not fall for, not yet, but definitely tumble headfirst for. Then, just as the main course was being served, figure emerged from the side entrance, gliding into the ballroom with an air of unshakable confidence. Tall, stunningly beautiful, wearing crimson dress that demanded attention. In my blood ran cold. Kilabot. It was Cassandra de Villa. Remus' ex-fiancée. The woman had replaced in this elaborate charade. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the room and then landed directly on our table. On me. A slow, predatory smile spread across her perfectly painted lips. Ooh oh. This was not going to be good. Celos. That's what I felt. A sharp, ugly pang of jealousy. She was everything I wasn't, poised, sophisticated, effortlessly glamorous. And she had the history with Remus, real history, not a fabricated one like ours. Remus, who was in the middle of a conversation with potential investor, tensed when he saw her. His smile faltered. Cassandra, he said, his voice carefully neutral. What a surprise. Remus, darling, she purred, walking towards our table, every head in the room turning to watch. Parang eksena sa pelikula. Yung kontrabida, making her grand entrance. I heard about your big launch. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Her gaze flicked to me, dismissive and cold. And it just had to meet the replacement. Replacement. The word stung. Sakit. Deep and sharp. Before I could react, before Remus could say anything, Cassandra reached into her impossibly chic clutch and pulled out her phone. With a flourish, she swiped through a few photos, then turned the screen towards me. They were photos of her and Remus. Intimate photos. Laughing together on a yacht, his arm around her waist. A stolen kiss under its starry air. A cozy selfie in what looked like a hotel room, both of them looking rumpled and happy. The kind of photos that screamed, "We're deeply in love and you're not part of this picture." My breath hitched. The world seemed to tilt. The beautiful ballroom, the glittering chandeliers, Remus' shocked face, everything blurred. See this, dear. Cassandra said, her voice dripping with venom, though her smile never wavered. This is real. This is what genuine affection looks like. Not some. A stunt cooked up to save face. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, loud enough only for me and Remus to hear. He's just using you, you know. You're a pretty little tool, a temporary fix. Once this project is secured, once the investors are happy, he'll drop you like a hot potato. Just like he was supposed to drop me for business, then came crawling back. Her words were like daggers, each one finding its mark. The hope, the fragile beginnings of trust, the tentative killing I had been nurturing, all of it shattered. Replaced by a cold, hollow ache. I looked at Remus. He looked horrified, speechless. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. His silence was deafening. It was all the confirmation needed. Using me. A tool. Temporary. The hurt was so intense, it felt like a physical blow. In the eye started to sting. No, I wouldn't tear shy. Not here. Not in front of her. Anger, hot and fierce, surged through me, drowning out the pain. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have let myself believe his words about wanting something to do? He was a master manipulator. This was all just a game to him. And I was the gullible pawn. I stood up, my legs trembling. His carefully constructed composure was gone. Remus finally found his voice, reaching for my hand. I flinched away from his touch as if he'd burned me. Don't, I choked out, due to voice shaking with unshed tears and fury. Don't touch me. Then, I did something I never thought I was capable of. I raised my hand, and with all the force I could muster, I slapped him. Hard. Across the face. The sound echoed in the sudden silence of the ballroom. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Camera flashes exploded. Remus recoiled, his cheekbone already turning red, his eyes wide with shock. And was that hurt? Good. I hope it hurt. With trembling fingers, I pulled off the ridiculously expensive diamond ring he had given me, our engagement's ring. The symbol of our lie. I threw it onto the table. It clattered against the champagne flute, the sound unnaturally loud in the stunned silence. Keep your project, Dim Montenegro, I said, with a voice surprisingly steady, though my heart was breaking into a million pieces. And keep your tools. Then, I turned and walked away. Or rather, I fled. Didn't look back. I couldn't. The tears were already streaming down my face, hot and shameful. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, hear the frantic whispers, the click-click-click of cameras immortalizing the humiliation. I ran out of the ballroom, out of the hotel, and into the indifferent night, the sapphire blue gown feeling like a costume of shame. I hailed the first taxi I saw, not caring where it went, just wanting to get as far away as possible. From him. From the lies. From the devastating truth that was, and probably always would be, just a girl from the kitchen, easily discarded when she was no longer useful. Back in the ballroom, Remus stood frozen, his cheeks stinging, his mind reeling. He watched Lily run out, trail of shattered illusions in her wake. He wanted to run after her, to explain, to tell her Cassandra was lying, twisting things. But he couldn't. Not yet. The investors were staring. His mother, Senora Victoria, was already making her way towards him, her face a mask of controlled fury. Daza looked like she was about to have a stroke. The Sargo project, his dream, his legacy, hung in the balance. He looked at the empty chair beside him, where Lily had been sitting just moments before, her laughter still echoing in his ears. The table felt cold, barren. The ring lay there, sparkling mockingly under the chandelier lights. Cassandra was smirking, triumphant. Well, that was dramatic. Looks like your little Cinderella lost her glass slipper. And her temper. Remus slowly turned to face her, his eyes like chips of ice. The charming CU was gone, replaced by someone cold and dangerous. Get out, Cassandra, he said, his voice deceptively calm. Before I have you thrown out. Her smirk faltered. She hadn't expected this. Remus, darling, I was just out. Now. Cassandra, realizing she had perhaps pushed too far, gave a haughty sniff, turned on her heel, and stalked out, her crimson dress a slash of angry color against the muted tones of the ballroom. The damage was done. The scandal was already brewing. But right now, all Remus could think about was the look on Lily's face. The raw pain, the betrayal. The way her eyes, usually so bright and expressive, had gone dull with hurt. He had told her he wanted something real. And in his clumsy, hesitant way, he had started to feel it too. This itch in his chest, this desperate urge to protect her, to make things right, it was terrifyingly real. But he had messed up. Royally. He had let Cassandra get to her, let his past cast dark shadow over their fragile, budding connection. He looked at the empty seat again. The gala dinner, the launch of his biggest project, suddenly felt meaningless. The applause, the congratulations, the clinking of glasses, it was all just noise. He had to fix this. He had to find Lily. He had to make her understand. But as he stood there, surrounded by the remnants of his carefully orchestrated life, a cold dread settled in his heart. What if he couldn't? What if this time, he had broken something irreparable? Ex na singi. Maybe. But the thought that terrified him more was, ex na rin ba ako sa puso niya? The taste of her slap, the glint of the discarded ring, the echo of her heartbroken voice, they were a far more potent reality than any business deal he had ever closed. And far more painful. The days following the disastrous gala were a blur of frantic phone calls, damage control meetings, and a gaping hole in Remus's penthouse that used to be filled with SpongeBob shirts and the scent of ginger. Lily was gone. Vanished. Her phone was off, and Lola Yaya, when Remus had awkwardly and desperately called the Montenegro staff house, had politely but firmly said, "Pasensya na po, senorito. Kailangan po muna ni Lily ng panahon. Para sa sarili niya. Panahon. Time. Something Remus suddenly had too much of, yet not enough. The Sargo project was, surprisingly, still on track. The investors, after a very tense emergency meeting where Remus had to use every ounce of his charm and business acumen, and a veiled threat from Senora Consuelo about pulling her own significant shares, had grudgingly agreed to proceed. But the victory felt hollow. The headlines were brutal. Montenegro hears fairy tale romance explodes. Cinderella runs the midnight, Daisy slaps Prince Charming. ISTV Montenegro de Villa merger backdeath. His mother, Senora Victoria, was furious, but also strangely subdued. Perhaps even she realized the Ezekiel nightmare was beyond her usual iron-fisted control. Cassandra, on the other hand, was milking the situation for all it was worth, giving tearful, exclusive interviews about her undying love for Remus and how she was willing to forgive him for his momentary lapse in judgment. Nakakasuka. But Remus didn't care about any of that. All he could think about was Lily. Her tear-streaked face, the betrayal in her eyes, the sting of her slap, which, he had to admit, he deserved. He'd let her down. He'd allowed his past, his family's expectations, and his own damn cowardice to hurt her. He replayed their last real conversation in his head, over and over. Pagod na ako sa fake. Gusto kong totoo. He had meant it every damned word. But he hadn't been brave enough to show it, to fight for it when it mattered most. One particularly bleak afternoon, after another pointless meeting, Remus found himself staring at the small, intricately carved wooden bird Lily had accidentally left on her bedside table. It was a simple thing, probably ipasalubong from some provincial trip, but it screamed Lily. Unassuming, a little quirky, but with a quiet beauty. He picked it up, sudden resolve hardening in his eyes. Enough. Tama na. He wasn't going to wait for Lily to come back. He was going to find her. He was going to apologize. And he was going to prove to her, somehow, that what he felt, what he was starting to feel so strongly, was anything but fake. He knew where to find her. Or at least, where her heart truly resided. The next morning, Remus Montenegro, CEO of one of the country's largest conglomerates, did something he hadn't done in years. He ditched his bespoke suit, his chauffeured car, and his army of assistants. He put on a simple, faded blue shirt, one he usually wore for bumming around the house, back when Lily was there to occasionally tease him about it, a pair of old jeans, and sneakers. He looked ordinary. Almost. He drove himself, not in his luxury sedan, but in an old, slightly battered pickup truck he kept at one of his smaller properties for sentimental reasons. It was his late father's. The destination, the small, bustling barrio where Lola Yaya lived, a world away from the gleaming skyscrapers and gated communities of his usual life. Pagdating niya sa palengke, the sights, sounds, and smells were the vibrant assault on his senses. The shouts of vendors, the aroma of grilled fish and ripe mangoes, the cheerful chows of jeepneys and tricycles weaving through the narrow streets. It was alive. Real. Something he hadn't experienced in a long, long time. He felt out of place, of course. A few heads turned, curious glances lingering on the expensive-looking, though dusty, pickup truck and the tall, mestizo stranger. But he wasn't here to impress anyone. He was here on mission. Paghingi ng tawad. A plea for a second chance. He found Lola Yaya at her usual spot in the market, tending to a small stall selling fresh vegetables and kakanin. She looked up, surprised, when she saw him approaching. Senorito Remus? Her eyes widened slightly, then softened with a familiar warmth. Anong ginagawa niyo dito? Lola Yaya, he said, his voice a little hoarse. He offered a small, hesitant smile. Pwede po ba akong tumulong? He gestured vaguely at the sacks of vegetables. Lola Yaya blinked, then a slow smile spread across her face. Naku, Hijo. Baka madumihan lang iyang maganda mong damit. Okay lang po, La. He picked up a bundle of kangkong. Sanay naman po ako sa trabaho. He wasn't, not this kind, but he was willing to learn. And so, Remus Montenegro, the business magnate, spent the next few hours helping Lola Yaya at her market stall. He carried sacks of sitaw, arranged mangoes into neat pyramids, and even tried his hand at haggling with customers. He was surprisingly bad at it, often giving in too easily, much to Lola Yaya's amusement. He got sweaty, his hands got dirty, and his back ached. But for the first time in weeks, he felt lighter. Purposeful. He didn't ask about Lily directly. He knew Lola Yaya wouldn't betray her granddaughter's trust. But he hoped his presence, his willingness to humble himself, would speak louder than words. Later that afternoon, as they were packing up, Lola Yaya finally spoke. Nasa bahay siya, Hijo. Ayaw lumabas. Ayaw makipag-usap. She sighed. Nasaktan mo siya ng husto. Remus's heart clenched. Alam ko po, La. At yun po ang pinagsisisihan ko. Gusto ko lang po sanang magpaliwanag. Humingi ng tawad. Lola Yaya looked at him, her eyes shrewd but kind. Ang pagpapatawad, Remus, hindi minamadali. At ang tiwala, kapag nasira, mahirap nang ibalik. She patted his arm. Pero ang pag-asa laging nandyan yan, basta totoo ang intensyon mo. Pag-asa. Hope. He clung to that word. He found Lily sitting beside the window in Lola Yaya's small but cozy living room, staring out at the sampaguita bushes, her back to him. She was wearing a simple duster, her hair tied back loosely. She looked thinner, her shoulders slumped. The sight of her, so subdued, so unlike the vibrant, occasionally clumsy girl had come to know, twisted something in his chest. Lily, he said softly. She tensed, but didn't turn around. Anong ginagawa mo dito, Remus? Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Or maybe, too full of it. Gusto kitang makausap. He took a tentative step closer. Please. Silence. Then, slowly, she turned. Her eyes were red-rimmed, guarded. The spark he loved so much was gone. It was like looking at a stranger. Wala na tayong dapat pag-usapan, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Tapos na ang kontrata. Tapos na ang palabas. Hindi yun palabas para sa akin, Lily, he said, his voice earnest. Hindi na, nitong mga huli. He took another step. Look, I know I messed up. Big time. What Cassandra did, what she said, it was manipulative, and I should have stopped her. I should have told you the truth right then and there. Ang alien, Remus, she asked, a bitter smile playing on her lips. Naginamit mo lang ako. Naisihito lang talaga ako. Narinig ko na iyon. Malinaw na malinaw. No. That's not. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. How could he make her understand? Yes, at first, maybe it was. I mothered the company. I was a coward. I was trying to protect everything I thought mattered. He looked directly into her eyes, willing her to see the sincerity there. But then, you happened, Lily. Ikaw. You came into a perfectly orchestrated, perfectly boring life, with your salabat and your SpongeBob shirts and your ridiculously honest opinions, and you turned everything upside down. A flicker of something in her eyes. Doubt? Pain? He couldn't tell. I started to look forward to our stupid arguments about whose turn it was to load the dishwasher. I started to like the way you hum off-key when you think no one's listening. I started to feel something real. Something I haven't felt in a very, very long time. He took deep breath. This was it, no holding back. Kung fake man yung simula natin, Lily, yung nararamdaman ko para sa iyo ngayon totoo na yun. Totoong totoo. She stared at him, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken emotions. He could hear the distant crowing of a rooster, the laughter of children playing outside. This small, humble barrio felt more real, more significant, than any boardroom had ever been in. Hindi ako naniniwala sa'yo, she finally whispered, her voice trembling. Words are easy, Remus. Promises are easily broken. Nakita ko na yan. He knew she was right. Words weren't enough. He needed to show her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was his official letter of resignation from Montenegro Corp. Not as he had already delegated most of his duties, but from the board, from any active involvement in the company his family had built. He was stepping down, fully. He unfolded it and handed it to her. This isn't for show, Lily. I submitted this yesterday. Effective immediately. I'm no longer the Sagi you thought you knew. I'm just Remus. He paused, then added, I'm going to be a consultant. Maybe teach a bit. I still have Duma shares, of course, Lola Consuelo made sure of that. But you know, day to day it's going to be different. Simpler. Lily's eyes widened as she read the letter. Her hand was shaking. She looked up at him, confusion and disbelief warring on her face. Bakit mo to ginawa? Because realized what truly matters, he said, his voice soft but firm. It's not the company, not the billions, not the reputation. It's finding something real. Someone real. He looked at her, his heart in his eyes. At ikaw yun, Lily. You are the realest thing that's ever happened to me. He took another step, closing the distance between them. He gently took her hand, the one not holding the letter. Her skin was cold. Alam kong nasaktan kita. At alam kong hindi sapat ang sorry lang. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time, they weren't tears of anger or betrayal. They were tears of confusion, of a fragile, burgeoning hope. Hindi kita pipilitin, Lily, he continued, his thumb gently caressing the back of her hand. Take all the time you need. To heal, to think. Pero kung kailan handa ka na, kung kailan kaya mo nang maniwala ulit, nandito lang ako. Naghihintay. He didn't tear aside to kiss her. He didn't pressure her. He just stood there, holding her hand, letting his actions, his presence, speak for him. He had laid his heart bare, offered her his truth. The rest was up to her. She didn't pull her hand away. She just looked at him, tears silently streaming down her face, her gaze searching his, as if trying to see into his very soul. The afternoon sun cast long shadows into the room. The scent of sampaguita and Lola Iaya's cooking drifted in through the open window. In that small, quiet moment, surrounded by the simplicity of barrio life, Remus felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before. He had given up a kingdom, but he had found something far more valuable. Pag-asa. Hope. It was a fragile seedling, but he would nurture it with all his might. Because Lily was worth it. 1 year. 1 taon. Ang bilis ng panahon, parang kailan lang. A lot can happen in a year. Hearts can heal. Trust, once shattered, can be painstakingly rebuilt, peace a fragile peace. Dreams, once deferred, can find new paths to bloom. Lily Alcantara, the girl from the kitchen who accidentally stumbled into a billionaire's penthouse and an even more accidental engagement, was no longer just that girl. I was now a program coordinator for a small but growing nonprofit organization focused on providing educational opportunities for underprivileged youth in rural areas. It was challenging work, often heartbreaking, but incredibly rewarding. Every child we helped, every scholarship we secured, every classroom we helped build, it was a small victory, a testament to hope. And the anonymous donor who consistently, generously funded many of our key projects. Well, let's just say had a strong suspicion who he was. Someone who understood the value of a simpler life, someone who had traded boardrooms for something more meaningful. Remus. He kept his promise. Nandito lang ako. Naghihintay. He didn't pressure me. He gave me space, so much space that sometimes, the silence was deafening. But he was there. Subtle gestures. A rare, encouraging text message when he heard about a successful fundraising event spearheaded. A surprise delivery of a favorite champorado from a small carinderia near his new, much smaller, much less ostentatious condo unit, with a simple note, "Thought you might like this. Keep shining, lily pad." We started talking again. Slowly. Tentatively. Like two people learning to dance new gavakida. No pretenses, no contracts, no strategies. Just Lily and Remus. We'd meet for coffee in unassuming caves, walk along the baywalk at sunset, call back to our fake first date, which now felt bittersweetly real, and talk for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about his consultancy work, his surprisingly fulfilling and often frustrating attempts at mentoring young entrepreneurs. I told him about the kids in our program, their dreams, their struggles. The old ones were still there, faint scars that reminded us of the past. But they no longer etched with the same intensity. The celos, the sakit, they had slowly faded, replaced by a quiet understanding, cautious hope. The kilig, though, that was making a strong comeback. Stronger, even, because this time, it felt earned. Real. Tonight was a big night. Our foundation was holding its annual scholarship awards ceremony. It was also the culmination of a year-long community project, the renovation of an old school building in a remote barrio, turning it into a vibrant learning hub. I was a bundle of nerves and excitement. I was also one of ang keynote speakers. Me. Lily Alcantara, na dati, nanginginig ang tuhod pagtataas lang ng kamay sa classroom. I stood at the podium, overlooking a crowd of smiling students, proud parents, dedicated teachers, and supportive community members. The newly refurbished school grounds were adorned with colorful banderitas, twinkling lights, and the infectious energy of a fiesta. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat, I began, giddy voice a little shaky at first, but gaining strength as I looked at the hopeful faces in front of me. Tonight, we celebrate not just achievements, but also the promise. It's promise that education, the key to a brighter future, should never be a privilege, but a right. Na ang edukasyon ay hindi dapat may presyo. NBI scanned the crowd, and then they found him. Remus. Standing quietly at the back, near a mango tree, dressed in a simple barong Tagalog that made him look even more handsome, if that was even possible. He wasn't trying to steal the spotlight. He was just there. Supporting me. His eyes were filled with a warmth and pride that made my heart do a happy little flip. He gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod, and a smile that spoke volumes. I continued my speech, Jinbiv's voice now filled with passion. I spoke about the power of dreams, the importance of community, the resilience of the Filipino spirit. I shared stories of the scholars, their struggles, their triumphs. Ili's own journey, though unspoken, was woven into every word. The journey from a girl who felt lost and insignificant to a woman who had found her purpose. As it finished, the applause was thunderous. It wasn't just polite clapping, it was genuine, heartfelt appreciation. I felt tears welling up, happy tears this time. Kaligayahan. Pure, unadulterated joy. Then, to Ginba's surprise, Remus started walking towards the stage. In my heart skipped a beat. Anong ginagawa niya? This wasn't part of the program. He reached the stage, took the microphone from the MC, and turned to face the crowd. His smile was boyish, a little nervous, but his eyes were shining. Magandang gabi po ulit, he said, his voice resonating through the speakers. I know I'm not on the program, but there's something very important, need to do something, should have done a long time ago, the right way. He turned to me. My breath hitched. The crowd went silent, palpable sense of anticipation in the air. He walked towards me, his gaze never leaving mine. He reached into his pocket, and the world tilted on its axis. He pulled out a small, velvet box. Oh! Ezra! God! He knelt down. On one knee. In front of everyone. In front of the students, the teachers, Lola Yaya, who was beaming from the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, and the entire barrio. Lily Alcantara, he began, his voice thick with emotion. A year ago, our story started with a misunderstanding, a viral video, and a whole lot of fake. Fake smiles, fake promises, a fake engagement. He chuckled, self-deprecating sound. But somewhere along the way, amidst the chows and the contracts, something incredibly real happened. I fell in love with you. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My hands flew to my mouth, tears streaming freely down in my cheeks now. This couldn't be happening. But it was. You said, ang edukasyon ay hindi dapat may presyo, he continued, his eyes locked on mine, sincere and full of love. And you're right. But Lily, he opened the velvet box. Inside, nestled on a bed of satin, was a simple but elegant ring, not a flashy diamond, but beautiful moonstone that seemed to glow with an inner light. It was perfect. It was us. Wala kang presyo, Lily, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Pero ikaw ang halaga ko. You are my treasure, my home, my everything. You taught me what truly matters. You showed me what real love feels like. He took a deep breath. So, Lily Alcantara, the amazing, inspiring woman who changed in my life. Will you marry me? This time, for real. No contracts, no essay, no ulterior motives. Just love. Totoong totoo. The world seemed to stop. All I could see was him, kneeling before me, his heart in his eyes, offering me a future never dared to dream of. His voice was choked with tears, but managed to nod, a sob escaping the lips. I whispered, then louder, for him, for everyone to hear, Remus. Yes. And million times, yes. He let out a whoop of joy, a wide, ecstatic grin spreading across his face. He slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. Then, he stood up and pulled me into his arms, a hug that felt like coming home. The crowd erupted in cheers, applause, and a chorus of AE, that was pure, unadulterated Filipino kilig. He cupped the face in his hands, his eyes sparkling. Mahal na mahal kita, Lilipad. Mahal na mahal din kita, Remus, I whispered back, with my heart overflowing. And then, he kissed me. A real kiss. A kiss filled with all the love, the hope, the forgiveness, and the promise of a lifetime. It wasn't KCV kissing his contractual fiancé. It was Remus kissing Lily. And it was perfect. As if on cue, fireworks suddenly burst overhead, painting the night sky with dazzling colors. Surprise Remus had apparently arranged with the local barangay captain. The fiesta atmosphere intensified, a joyous celebration of love and second chances. Lola Yaya made her way to us, her face beaming with pride and happiness. She hugged us both tightly. Sabi ko na nga ba, she whispered, winking at me. Tadhana, iha. Hindi chismis. Destiny. Not gossip. And as Remus and I stood there, hand in hand, watching the fireworks explode like our own bursting hearts, surrounded by the warmth and love of a community that had embraced us, I knew Lola Yaya was right. Our beginning might have been fake, story cooked up for headlines and boardrooms. Fake ang simula. But our love. The love that had grown from the ashes of misunderstanding and hurt, nurtured gives patience, forgiveness, and an unwavering hope. Pero ikaw ang totoo. You, Remus, you are the truth. And this time, our happily ever after wasn't just a contractual obligation. It was a promise whispered under a divide full of fireworks, sealed with a kiss, and witnessed via a barrio full of love. It was real. It was ours. At sa wakas, ang babaeng galing kusina at ang sihi na natutong magmahal ng totoo, ay natagpuan ang kanilang tunay na penthouse, isang tahanan na puno ng pag-ibig, pag-asa, at walang katapusang salabat tuwing umaga. At, minsan, may SpongeBob shirt pa rin. Dahil ang totoong pag-ibig, hindi judgmental sa pambahay.